Hello and welcome to another episode of Big Dumb Movie, where we discuss a different Big Dumb movie every episode. I'm your host Corey, and I'm here with my co-hosts Alan.
Hello.
And Steve.
Good evening.
Hello guys. So I have a quick question for you before we go into it. As I'm sure the listeners are aware, we watched Street Fighter: Legend of Chun-Li.
One of my favorite films.
No, we watched Con Air this time around. Maybe next time for Steve. Steve said he wanted to do that one soon, so...
Oh yeah, I'm desperately in the mood for that one.
So, I have a quick question for you guys. I'll put you on the spot. What's your favorite Nick Cage movie? Alan, go.
Oh man, right on the spot.
If you want me to answer and kill some time so you can formulate an answer, that's totally okay.
Yes, you go first.
All right. So my favorite Nick Cage movie is called Leaving Las Vegas. It's a 90s movie about Nick Cage playing an alcoholic who goes to Las Vegas essentially to drink himself to death. It hits me on a lot of levels, really. It's a sad movie, and I don't know, it's just really good. Great drama. Nicolas Cage actually won an Oscar for that. So if anyone ever gives you shit about Nicolas Cage's acting ability, just remind him that he got an Oscar for Leaving Las Vegas. All right, hopefully that gave you guys enough time. Whoever wants to go first, favorite Nick Cage movie.
Leaving Las Vegas is a strong contender for me as well. That movie, in addition to the fact that I think it's just a good movie in general, that movie is really, in a lot of ways, aesthetically and cinematically an encapsulation of where art film was at that point in time.
Wow.
But I don't know. I find myself slightly preferring Bringing Out the Dead. If we're talking about his actual good films, Bringing Out the Dead for me is probably my favorite.
Bringing Out the Dead. That's one I've never even heard of.
That was him and Tom Sizemore, oddly, having a moment of clarity. It's about two ambulance drivers across multiple days of shifts in various parts of bad neighborhoods in New York City.
Wow, this sounds great.
Yeah, it actually is a really good movie. I mean, it is not a comedy. It is a dramatic film, but absolutely it is a good movie.
I like Tom Sizemore before he was too fucked up. He was really good.
He was. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, I know my answer. I
already know what it is. Go ahead.
I have actually two. I will say I thought Ghost Rider was pretty funny.
Oh my god. Okay, never mind. I guess I didn't know.
But more seriously, I did like Gone in 60 Seconds.
I knew it.
Yeah.
I knew you were a Gone in 60 Seconds man the moment I laid eyes on you.
It's another Nick Cage movie that is an absolute encapsulation of where movies of that kind were at that time. Absolutely.
But Leaving Las Vegas, I actually know a little bit about that because I saw like a scene or two, and I looked up that movie, and it was Elizabeth Shue. And yeah, he won an Academy Award for that. And
Yep.
I actually wanted to see that, but I haven't seen that one. But
It's so good. It's kind of depressing, but for a long time for me, that movie was very relatable.
Okay.
Anyway.
Yeah, anyway, so I guess Gone in 60 Seconds.
All right. Good. I'm glad we got that out of the way. Now make way for Con Air. None of our favorite Nick Cage movie, but that's okay. So Con Air was released in 1997. It was directed by Simon West. Now,
Yes.
Simon West also directed one of the biggest music videos of all time. Do you guys have any guesses?
It was a Michael Jackson video.
Not the one that I'm referring to. Not that I saw. I didn't see any Michael Jackson. This
No.
one is more popular. I'll give you guys a hint. It's like one of the first memes ever.
Is it Never Gonna Give You Up?
Yep.
Yeah, I was going to say it's got to be Rick Astley. Wow.
I knew
That's
it when
crazy.
you said that. I was like, "That's it. That's
Absolutely.
the original Rickroll."
Right? You've been Rickrolled.
So yeah, this guy directed that.
Wow. Wow.
This movie Con Air, it was picked by Alan, but I forgot about this. This was also suggested by our number one fan, my mom.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she suggested this a while back.
I suggested it because I know it gets talked about, and it's a pretty memed movie. There's that classic. We'll get to it, but that image when he steps off the bus, and he's like, his hair's blowing in the wind.
Yeah, that's like one of the most popular gifs on the internet.
So I actually wanted to see Con Air to see what the memes were all about.
That's right, because you've never seen it.
Yeah, this is the first time I saw it.
Now, do you have any personal history with it? I mean, were you gonna go see it? Was there anything like?
Honestly, no. I mean, I just barely remember it coming out. I remember the poster fucking Nicolas Cage with his ridiculous haircut. And then once all the memes started coming out, I was like, oh yeah, Con Air, and then I finally saw it.
What about you, Steve? Tell us about your history with Con Air.
I'm pretty certain I was on summer break when this film came out. This was 97. Yeah, I was 14. I was 14 when the film came out. I think I was on summer break. I think my dad took my brother and I to see it. And I'm pretty sure we saw it at a place in West Hills. In any case, my memory of seeing it at the time was that I kind of enjoyed it as a 14-year-old in a theater, but carried very little interest in it later on. Like, I think I watched it maybe one other time a couple of years later on HBO, and then otherwise just never really thought about it prior to recently. Yeah.
I get you. I saw this movie with my dad, not in theaters, but this was around the time, like when I would spend the weekend with my dad, we'd go to the local VHS, rental place.
Nice.
And he'd pick out a movie for both of us to watch. It was after the point when I was really little, and I would pick out my own little kid movies, and he started picking up grown-up movies for us to watch together. I mean, this is an R-rated film, and I guess it was around the time I started watching R-rated films with my dad. So this film kind of always reminds me of my dad.
Right.
Thanks for showing me Con Air, Dad, if you're listening. No, he doesn't listen. My mom does. Anyway. So we actually have Nicolas Cage in the studio with us. He can only be here for a minute, but since he's here, I figured Nicolas Cage, maybe you could put yourself in the character of Poe and describe the plot of the movie. Nicolas Cage, if you please.
They somehow managed to get every creep and freak in the universe onto this one plane, and then somehow managed to let them take it over. And then somehow managed to stick us right smack in the middle.
Well, yeah, that's exactly it. Thanks, Nick Cage. I see you got to go now, so I guess we'll be seeing you around. So, since Nicolas Cage is gone and it's just the three of us, what do you guys say we get right into it?
Absolutely.
Yes, let's do it.
All right. So, which of the two of you remembered the openings of this movie? It's been a while.
I think I did. The opening was the music and the compilation of like patriotic images and scenes.
It was very Michael Bay.
Yeah, and like the American flag and like soldiers fighting, and
Yeah,
it was a very like
war movie.
it was like a war movie. It was like a very patriotic, strong, emotional. You're supposed to like
Yeah, I know what you mean.
yeah. There's a lot of like soldiers and fighting and flags, and they have the trumpet sounds, and it's like a intro to a war movie almost.
Why are they showing all this, though?
They're showing this to, I guess, establish the character. Nicolas Cage's character, he's a ranger.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
He's an Army Ranger. Army Ranger? Is that
Army
right?
Ranger, yeah.
Yeah. Not a Power Ranger. Power is different, right? You join the Power branch, you become a Power Ranger.
Wait,
If you
what-
join the Army, you become an Army Ranger.
What color would Nicolas Cage be?
He'd be the White Ranger, for sure.
I mean, there's a lot of different Ranger. Power Ranger, Park Ranger. There's a lot of different Rangers to keep track of.
Right. You join the Park branch of the military.
Right. So, he wasn't giving tours at Yosemite. He was actually fighting in a war zone.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's a ranger, and then in parentheses, park.
So Nicolas Cage is a Park Ranger, and he just got out of the Park Ranger Training Academy.
And his last name is Park. Park Ranger Park.
Poe. He's one of the.
That's what it
Don't you know
is.
he's one of the Teletubbies? Cameron Poe.
So he's trying to make small children gay.
That was Tinky Winky, you son of
that's
a
right.
bitch. Man, not well versed in the Teletubbies lore, I see.
Oh, jeez, I apologize.
Yeah, they should bring back the Teletubbies, and whoever played the baby, he's like probably grown guy now, just have like that same guy, like a grown guy, like smoking a cigarette. Like the sun comes up and it's just him, with like a goatee. He's like a neck beard. What up?
Disheveled.
Yeah.
It's like somebody's student film, man. It's like a guy in his late 20s smoking a cigarette while the Teletubbies perform for him.
Yeah, like in black and white. Like,
Every once in a while, he takes a swig from a bottle of whiskey. It's art.
yeah.
No, it's not.
It's just no budget. Come on, man.
It's trash.
Having no budget is art.
Right.
All right, so
Okay.
Nicolas Cage is a Power Ranger. He gets out of the Power Ranger Academy. He meets up with his wife at a bar, right?
Is it his wife or his girlfriend?
Wife.
His wife.
Yeah, his wife.
His wife, yeah.
And we find out that she's pregnant.
Trisha Poe.
Is that her name?
Yes, it is. The bartender makes a point of calling her by name the very first moment we see her on screen. He makes a point of addressing her as
Yeah.
Trisha Poe.
Well, I know how it is working with, like, I work with Alan. I like to say, hey, Alan Garcia, how's it going, man?
Right. Maybe it's just a southern thing. You know, every time she comes up to the bar, he's like, oh, Trisha Poe, you got an order? You know?
And she says it in like that heavy accent, like
That-
she's like a regular.
I mean, this kind of already brings up a point about this movie. It is given exposition that is so clunky and fast that it's really hard to keep up with. I know the premise of this movie is very simple, and if you look it up on Rotten Tomatoes or IMDb, it's just like one line. But all the stuff, the workings of this movie, like who the characters are going to meet and all this, it's explained in clunky exposition that it goes by so fast that you won't remember. There's going to be parts that we're going to talk about, and I'm going to quiz you guys. I'm going to see if you remember.
Why did that happen? I don't fucking know.
What were they doing here? We'll get to that.
Okay, so yeah, we're introduced to the wife, and Nicolas Cage or Cameron Poe meets her at the bar. And then that's when we're introduced to those like skis bag guys. Like,
Yes.
I don't remember their names, but they're supposed to be like just the regulars who make trouble.
They're probably just credited as Bar Thug 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, bar thugs. They're just drunk and just want to fight someone.
Yeah. Well, they want to fuck his wife.
One
And-
guy makes a note. He particularly says that he'd take a beating for her, or he says something like, "Oh, I'd get beat for her," which I thought was
I'd get
really-
murdered for her.
I thought that was really funny. He's like, "Oh, I'll take a beating for her." It's like, what?
Foreshadowing to 30 seconds later.
Actually, yeah. Now that you mentioned that. So yeah, so then the guys start picking a fight with, or no. So they start making remarks, and then she holds Nicolas Cage back.
Yeah.
She's like, "No, don't fight them."
She's like, don't be that guy again. I almost saw that guy again. They kind of make it seem like this is another clunky exposition line where apparently he has a history of like going crazy and fucking people up or something. So he went to the army to get like straightened out. Like he was trying to, you know, not be that guy anymore.
So they don't do anything, and then later it cuts to him leaving, and then when he's going to his car, that's when the guys show up again. Like, yeah, now's when they're gonna get their revenge, and now they're gonna jump him.
Yeah. It's that classic like bar scene, you know, like the characters are just in the bar for a fight to happen. It's like playing D&D. It's like you start off in a tavern and immediately go into combat. You're in a tavern, roll for initiative.
2 trolls occupy the field outside. What will you do?
A guy with long flowing robes and a beard walks up to you and says, "I need help with something."
Do you accept the quest?
Anyway,
So yeah, so the guys come up, and it's a pretty cliche scene. They're like, "Oh yeah, what's up now?" And there's like 4 of them, and one of them has a knife, which is the point. We have to make a point of one of them pulls out a knife, and then Nicolas Cage just starts fighting him. This is the badass part where he's like, "Oh, look how tough he is," but he punches one guy like in his nose.
he gives him a palm strike to the filter.
Yeah. And then after he beats them all up and he disarms them and everything's done, the next scene you see him like in court because I guess he killed the guy.
Yeah, exactly. He did kill the guy. Now, real quick, did you guys see Aquaman recently?
No, I did not.
Currently
I
out in
didn't want to
theaters.
bother.
Chose not to see that one.
Good call.
Yeah.
But all Aquaman's shittiness aside, there's one scene in Aquaman where he's at a bar with his dad, and these guys walk up behind him and they tap him on the shoulder, and I'm like rolling my eyes when I'm watching this, thinking, "Oh God, this shit again. Does this have to be in every movie?" But they turn it on its head. They say, "Hey, we want you're the Aquaman. Can we take a picture with you?" And they take selfies with him. It's like more like what would really happen,
Right.
if there was such a thing.
That's actually funny.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was like one scene that I actually liked just for that moment.
Absolutely.
Don't watch the other 2 hours and 20 minutes or however long it is.
There's this one 27-second clip. It's really cool.
Yeah, it has its moments, but anyway, Aquaman is not good. Con Air is better. I'll say that.
So he's on trial, and they're playing the whole scene where he's going to jail because he killed the guy. But the first thing I thought was, it doesn't make any sense because the guy had a knife and he was like defending himself.
Steve,
The guy
speak
was
on
trying to
this,
kill him.
please. I need your input.
we did this. We're talking about Nick Cage's fight in the parking lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of this whole ridiculous thing. Clearly meeting the guys in the bar was setting it up for the fight in the parking lot. The guys come around, they start a bunch of shit. They're going to try to assault his wife. It's just another one of these movie cliches, kind of like the bar fight scene. And one of them pulls a knife and kind of incidentally gets killed. And now next thing you know, Nick Cage, he's a weapon. The judge makes a point of noting that Nick Cage is a weapon.
Yeah. He was the 10th in the Army Ranger program. He's Army Ranger X.
Right. So he's now got to go to jail for stopping dudes from raping his wife.
Yeah.
Which is pretty unfair.
Yeah, which the guy had a knife. Like, what are you supposed to do? The guy had a knife.
What the heck would you do in a situation like that?
And now
You're-
Nick Cage goes to jail.
Sorry. If you're as well trained as Nick Cage, you just take the knife. You just get stabbed.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to just let 3 guys from a bar assault your wife. What else are you going to do? Defend yourself?
Go to jail for 7 years.
The judge's reasoning is that because he's trained, he is a weapon, like you said. So that's why he goes to prison for a pretty fucking long time.
Yeah, it was 7 years, I believe.
Yeah, and manslaughter. So I mean, yeah, you get time for that.
Is he a weapon of mass destruction?
Yeah, cinematically speaking. That is no way to treat a national treasure.
Oh, my boy Ben.
Insert clip here.
But this is no way to treat a national treasure.
All right. Anyway,
So now he's in jail.
he's in jail.
They show him getting processed and the whole scene. Like, he got convicted. He goes into jail.
Yep.
This is where it starts to really get good.
Okay. Do tell, Steve.
Well, 'cause they make this obtuse point of showing like all the workouts that he's doing in the prison cell to like occupy himself. I mean, he's doing all these things to like rebuild himself, right? He's learning to speak Spanish, which is okay, whatever, for some reason. But he does this crazy workout regimen, including an exercise where he like stands on one hand and supports his whole body. There's a good 45 seconds where this could be a Batman movie. Like,
Yeah.
he somehow becomes Bruce Wayne in a jail cell.
He's just training and getting ripped and super
Yeah.
strong.
He's
so he can-
traveling all along the jail, learning different
Right.
fighting techniques, presumably off screen.
Yeah, and then in comes the mullet.
Yeah.
There was a real weird period in the Superman comics where he sort of like died, even though he really didn't.
Yes.
And-
when he comes back, he has a mullet.
He's a mullet, and Nick Cage was almost in a Tim Burton Superman movie about the death of Superman, and I
Yes.
think I think this was an homage to that. I like to think of it that way.
Yes, the movie was going to be called Superman Lives.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, Kevin Smith was on board.
Yeah, absolutely. Kevin Smith's story about that film is way funnier than anything I have to say.
Yeah.
You should really, when you're done listening to us, you should listen to Kevin Smith because he's funny.
Absolutely. And there's a good documentary about the failed making of that
Yes.
movie called The Death of Superman Lives by a guy called, I think his name's John Schnepp.
Yeah.
And he unfortunately passed recently. Rest in peace, John Schnepp.
Joel Silver is a fascinating human being. That dude is a lunatic.
Yeah, oh my, the stories.
Right.
I mean, they've been told before, so we'll leave it to them,
Yeah.
but absolutely.
Back to Con Air, I made another point around this same time. I think it's when he first gets processed. Is they make a scene where they show like the prison cells and some of it's on fire, and it's like they make it seem like a riot, like
Yeah,
not like
at
a
one
real
point,
prison.
Like in the passage of time, there's like a prison riot, and there's like all hell is broken loose outside of his cell. He's like in his cell, like reading a book about how to speak Spanish.
And there's like fires outside,
Yeah,
and just shit's all going to hell.
Yeah.
Could you
Pretty
guys knock
intense.
that off on Morning Spanish? Thank you.
I would say stop in Spanish right here if I knew how. Alan, help me out.
Stop.
Bro, your last name's Garcia. Anyway, so yeah, he spends a lot of time in prison doing handstand push-ups and all other kinds of crazy yoga and stuff. And he writes his kid and he writes his wife. And he doesn't want him to come visit him because he doesn't want to meet his daughter like that. Because his daughter is born shortly after he goes to prison. So he's never met her. He's only talked to her through letters he sent. Which, you know, that had to have been years after she was born because she's a baby and she's a toddler. She has to learn how to talk before she even understands that you know, she has a dad and he's somewhere else and he's sending letters. So
Okay.
all that's going on. And eventually he gets paroled, right? So
Yeah.
do you want to talk about his parole, Alan?
So he gets paroled and he has his like box of letters and the rabbit.
Yes, he has a rabbit. Tell us about the rabbit.
The rabbit. It's a gift he got for her because his cellmate says something and he's like, "Oh, it's her birthday."
Daddy is coming home on July 14th. My birthday is July 14th. You're gonna see my daddy for the first time ever on July 14th. I can't wait to meet you, honey. Isn't that the cutest thing you ever heard?
Yeah, he's getting out on her birthday. So the last letter that she sent him says, you know, my daddy gets out of jail on whatever day it was, and that's the day he gets to go see her for the first time. So he has this like stuffed rabbit, or a bunny as he calls it.
Yeah, which makes an appearance at the end of the film.
This is when he puts the bunny in the box, and he does not like it if you take the bunny out of the box.
I said, put the bunny back in the box.
Speaking of which, what do you guys feel about his accent? I think he's from Alabama in the movie.
He is supposed to be from Alabama, and the story is that he traveled to Alabama prior to production of the film in order to perfect his accent.
Ooh.
I think it was wasted time. I have a feeling what he did was probably spend a lot of time drinking and hitting on waitresses.
I'm going to prepare for this role the same way I did leaving Las Vegas. And just get drunk all the time.
Right. You know, when he wasn't busy buying 9 Rolls Royces at a time or a castle or outbidding Leo DiCaprio for dinosaur bones, which are all things he really did.
This guy does not spend his money well. He is like Michael Jackson. The shit Nicolas Cage spends his money on is insane.
Oh.
That's why we see him in so many horrible movies,
Oh,
by the
yeah.
way.
Yeah, I mean, but the guy's ability to make money is just unfathomable. He's earned like $200 million and blown half of it. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
We talked about this, didn't? He's the one who told Johnny Depp that there's like money in acting.
I think it was the other way around.
No, it was Nicolas Cage who told Johnny Depp.
Maybe it was.
Yeah.
It was one or the other.
Where the fuck were they at? Like a weird bingo convention? Like weirdos only playing bingo?
The two of them apparently were friendly at one point around the time Depp was doing 21 Jump Street.
Oh my god,
Yeah.
that's like early Depp. That's before any movie.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, actually, I think he may have done the first Nightmare on Elm Street at that
Okay.
point. Yeah. But yeah.
Johnny Depp. Man, Johnny Depp is so good. Well, he was.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he is, for the right role, he's really pretty amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. How about Nick Cage in this movie? Is he amazing? You guys think his performance is amazing?
You know, I mean, maybe not quite Daniel Day-Lewis level, but sure.
It was entertaining.
Right?
Yeah, he doesn't go all face-off insane like Wicker Man Nick Cage, but he's still pretty good to watch. He's fun.
It's a performance given by a man who's enjoying being in a film he cares not at all about. In fact, just as a side note, I learned this recently. Jerry Bruckheimer produced this film. Bruckheimer, for years, had a partner named Don Simpson. Simpson, and he produced a lot of massively successful movies together. They split up just before production of this film started. Bruckheimer hated it. No, I'm sorry, it's not Don Simpson. Don Simpson hated it, wanted nothing to do with it, and it contributed to the two of them splitting, which is kind of interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
All because of Con Air, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, and then like a year later, before the film came out, he'd passed away, Don Simpson. Yeah.
It killed him, Con
It
Air.
killed him.
Yeah.
It did. Nick Cage is indirectly responsible for Don Simpson's death.
I'm pretty sure that's on his tombstone.
Several of the things I've said on this podcast might get me sued.
You just started a conspiracy. That's going to be online now.
Right.
Okay, back to Con Air. I actually made a note. I think when he's writing his daughter, he tells her, put a yellow ribbon around the oak tree because I'm coming home.
Yeah.
Be a hummingbird. Break out the fine china, chill the lemonade, tie a yellow ribbon around the old oak tree. 'Cause this boy's coming home to his ladies. Coming home forever. I just hope I'm not a disappointment to Casey or to you.
What the fuck does that mean? It sounds like something you just made up on the spot. Like, is that some saying I just don't know about? Am I retarded? And I've never heard anybody say that.
Yes, you are. No, you're not. I don't know what that means, man. Come on.
Like, is the audience supposed to know? Is this a Southern thing? Like, why the fuck did he say that? He says it's so, like,
He prepared for the
fast.
role by traveling all around the South, and everywhere he went, they said that. For
tying a yellow ribbon around
every
that oak
occasion.
tree.
What does Google tell you, Steve?
Oh, I'm not even looking that up. I'm looking at my own notes, and I'm like, yeah, what the fuck is that about? Look, I have no idea what the hell
I
that means.
definitely made a note of that because it was so ridiculous.
Jamie, pull it up.
Pull it up. We gotta get a researcher for this podcast, man.
If you're interested, you can email us at bigdumbmovie@gmail.com. Send your resume and 3 references.
It is an extremely unpaid position.
Yeah.
I just want to make that clear.
You know when you're trying out for Project Mayhem and Fight Club? You got to stand at my doorstep for 3 days with no food and water or encouragement.
All right, so for now, we don't know what that means, but that was weird.
Yeah. That's okay. So Nick Cage is getting out of jail. That's the point, right? He finally made his parole after many, many years. And he has a friend in jail, his cellie, who's named Baby O. Now played by the same guy that played Bubba in Forrest Gump, whose name I don't know. Anyone here got it?
I don't. I can look it up.
You don't have to. It's fine. Doesn't
Bubba.
matter. Bubba from Forrest Gump.
Right.
Who he's super friendly with, which I thought they would just... It seems like a really weird relationship.
They had needs, and they had each other and in one cell. You know, you make friends in prison, and you don't talk about it after.
The first rule of prison is you don't talk about prison.
It's okay to do that, man.
All right, fine. You know, whatever you're into.
So Nick Cage and his gay cellmate, they get out of prison, and they are getting on a plane. And the plane is called the Jailbird.
The Jailbird. They make a point to a couple of shots of the plane, and they have the writing on the side, and it says
so
the
bad.
Jailbird.
Steve, I'd like to know, is that on the nose enough for you?
I mean, you know, it could even be beyond on the nose. Like, if you could run your fingers into your skull, like, just one long, like, arcing upward shot from the ground of the Jailbird, accompanied by the obligatory, like, dun dun, the music tone, like, oh, it's the Jailbird. It's the Jailbird.
The big unveiling, like this thing, the unveiling of the Jailbird.
John Cusack's like, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the Jailbird.
Right?
Now, this is probably the scene that I remember most. I'm willing to bet everyone remembers the most. It's when they have that booming music, like you said, and they're introducing our colorful cast of characters. There's a lot of big name actors in this movie.
It really is an ensemble cast. Like, calling Nick Cage the star of it is both accurate and kind of unfair.
Absolutely. Alan, do you want to tell us who else is boarding this plane?
Yes.
Not people that show up later, mind you. Just who's boarding the plane right now.
Okay, at this moment, well, the major one, who's a major villain, is John Malkovich, who's Cyrus the Virus.
John Malkovich is Cyrus the Virus. Tell us about Cyrus the Virus. What's his rap sheet?
This one's done it all. Kidnapping, robbery, murder, extortion. His name is Cyrus Grissom, a.k.a. Cyrus the Virus. 39 years old, 25 of them spent in our institutions. But he's bettered himself inside, earned 2 degrees, including his Juris Doctor. He also killed 11 fellow inmates, incited 3 riots, and escaped twice. Likes to brag that he killed more men than cancer. Okay, open wide.
He's just been in and out of the system. The guy says he's like been in and out of the system like dozens of times, pretty much his whole life. He's like for fraud, stealing. He's supposed to be like above average intelligence or what? It's like somewhat genius, or he's supposed to be super smart.
He is, and I quote, the poster child for the criminally insane.
That's a very 90s line. Oh, boy. We can parallel this here to Spider-Man. Willem Dafoe auditioned for that part.
Oh, okay.
Did not get it. Mickey Rourke auditioned for that part and apparently whipped out a Bowie knife during his audition and scared the shit out of the director.
You know what? I think as much as I like Malkovich, he might have been a better suit for this. Malkovich is not intimidating.
No.
Mickey Rourke, he can be intimidating.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. He's kind of scary because he's crazy.
Yeah, John Malkovich, he just doesn't come off like threatening. The only thing that makes him so is the fact that you know his history in this movie.
Right.
If they had cut out that scene where they say he's killed more men than cancer, and he was just a guy, I would have been like, someone just knock this dude out and take over. Like, he's lame.
And if you say a word about this over the radio, the next wings you see will belong to the flies buzzing over your rotting corpse.
I mean, he'll pull the trigger on someone. He'll shoot someone, but like he doesn't seem like particularly like good at, I don't know.
Malevolent.
Yeah,
No.
like what? I mean, he's not intimidating. Like
But
you got
that was-
Ving Rhames in there, who's massive.
Right.
But that was the whole point, right? I mean, he wasn't supposed to be like physically intimidating. He's supposed to be like more methodical and like processed. You know.
I guess, but he's in a position where he's like, I'm the one in charge, and anyone could just knock him out and be like, now I'm in charge. You know?
But he had a plan for everything. I mean, what
That's
was his
true.
plan for that?
You're right. He did mastermind the whole thing, so they were
He
reliant.
thought about all this. That's the point. He's not a big guy, but he thought about it all beforehand.
Who do you think would win, him or Kevin Spacey from Seven?
Yeah, that's kind of a similar character. Probably Kevin Spacey, because that movie was better.
Yeah, I mean, boy, it depends on how grievous your sin was, really.
John Malkovich would think he had everything planned out, and then he would open his closet and he'd find the head of his dog or something.
Was that Pride?
Yeah. Your sin is pride. Are we allowed to talk about Kevin Spacey? Are you allowed to say that name nowadays?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, not in a positive way, I guess.
Man, that was like a year and a half ago? He was fine until that whole story broke.
He's losing his mind on top of it. I mean, he's posting on Twitter as his character from House of Cards.
Yes.
And he's just all
Yeah,
kinds of
he
weird
is,
and inflammatory shit.
He is.
Like, and I feel
That
bad
show
'cause-
that was canceled?
right? I always respected him as an actor up until finding out about what he's been accused of, and I guess innocent till proven guilty. But it's a pretty substantial claim, and he's really losing his shit over it.
You're right. Let's not get in too much hot water and talk about Kevin
yeah.
Spacey.
Okay.
I shouldn't have opened that can of worms. I apologize.
Okay, so yeah, besides, who did we just say?
Besides Cyrus the
Cyrus the
Virus.
Virus. Ving Rhames.
Yes.
And then you also have Danny Trejo.
Yes, but he doesn't get a sweet intro. He's just
no,
like
he
on
doesn't.
the plane.
Okay, you're right. Yeah, I forgot. He's just on the plane. So
This
Ving
is like
Rhames-
his intro is, this is Danny Trejo. He was on set. We let him be in the movie.
and Dave Chappelle.
He doesn't get a big intro either.
No.
The big intro guys. Come on. Boom.
Who's the big intro, guys? Ving
So
Rhames?
aside from Cyrus the Virus, there's, what's his name? Grisham?
Yeah, Grissom.
Grissom.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the guy that caught his wife cheating on him with another guy, and instead of hurting them, he drove to his wife's family's house and killed her whole family, including the dog.
Oh yeah. Okay,
He's
yeah.
the guy that has
Yeah.
beef with Nick Cage and has a growly voice.
What you looking at, punk?
Nothing, I was just admiring your cage. Your cage. Your cage.
Oh yeah. Okay,
It
yeah.
reminds
yeah.
me of like a poor man's Jeff Bridges.
The guy with the goatee.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Like that era Jeff Bridges, Anyway, there's him, and then Ving Rhames is all about he's like a Black Power kind of guy. He's in prison for blowing up an NRA meetup because
okay.
he said they represent everything bad about the white race or something like that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
His name's Diamond Dog. And Nicolas Cage is there, and basically the people that are introing them are like a head DEA agent and what's the name of the other guy? John Cusack.
John Cusack.
Yeah.
Who
Vince.
I don't really know what his position is. He's like just the head of something. Like
Yeah, I mean, there's this kind of weird subplot that gets lost after the first 15 minutes about a super prison.
yes,
Like a
you're
super
right.
prison, and
There it is, another line of exposition that's just thrown out so fast that if you don't pay
Right?
attention,
And to your point, I can no longer remember where he fits into. Is he a representative of the jail, or was he a DEA? He's not with the DEA.
no, he's something else.
Google says he's a U.S. Marshal.
US
He's
Marshal.
credited
right.
as a U.S. Marshal.
That's right. He's a U.S. Marshal. Okay. So he's with the U.S. Marshal's office, and then
Because he's the one who's supposed to. He's a marshal, and he's in charge of getting the. That's part of his job, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that? He's supposed to get the plane and everyone safe to the destination.
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
You're right about that. He's in charge of that.
Yeah.
And They're going to a super prison that was recently built. So half the guys on the plane are going to that prison, the big names, and then the other guys are just being sent to another place where they're either getting let out or they're just going to be, relocated to a different prison.
Which immediately brings up the point why Nicolas Cage is even there.
Okay.
Like,
so-
he couldn't get on any other plane. Like, he has to take the plane with the most craziest guys, all like multiple mass murderers and crazy shit. And he killed one guy by accident, defending himself.
I thought they gave you some money and put you on a bus. Isn't that the way you get released from jail? Like, the only way to transport this man back to Alabama is on the jailbird with a bunch of violent mass murderers who are going to a supermax penitentiary? There's no other alternative.
Because he killed one guy by accident, defending himself.
I mean, it would have cost the system, what, $75 to get him a Greyhound ticket?
Well, you're right. I mean, Nick Cage, who was here earlier in the studio, even pointed that out in his description of the movie.
They somehow managed to get every creep and freak in the universe onto this one plane.
You're right.
I don't even know why I was there.
Yeah. He sees the flaw. Yeah.
So that's a question that just never gets answered.
So this whole thing's being supervised by John Cusack. I'm going to get that and Malkovich mixed up a lot, so just a warning there. So John Cusack, the U.S. Marshal, and then his counterpart is this DEA agent played by Colm Meaney.
Chief O'Brien.
Chief fucking O'Brien. Oh my God.
He's even got a little Star Wars excuse me. Wow, that was a faux pas. He's even got a little
Get
Star
out.
Trek.
Yeah, you're off the podcast.
Star Trek emblem on his keychain that you see later.
He does?
Yeah, you didn't notice that?
I didn't.
There's a
No, I
Star
didn't
Trek
notice
emblem on the
that.
keychain with his car keys.
Like Starfleet?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's awesome. I have a Starfleet emblem on my keychain.
Nice.
I need to go back and see if it's the same one.
That's the first thing I thought of when I saw him in this movie, because I never saw the movie, and that's the first thing I thought. I was like, oh, he's on Star Trek.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he's done a lot of stuff, but yeah, I know him most from Star
No, you know
Trek.
what it is? It's a communicator. It looks like one of the handheld communicators from the show is what it is. It's not a...
Oh, I get you.
Yeah.
Okay.
but yeah.
Yeah, Colm Meaney, also known as Chief O'Brien from DS9 as well as TNG. He had a good run. He was actually one of my favorite characters on DS9. I love that show a lot.
All right, versus Riker, who wins?
Oh, dude, the Chief has been through some serious shit. All right, I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about one episode of DS9. There's an episode of DS9 where he does like 40 years in prison. The Chief O'Brien, seriously? But it's all like in his mind. Like he does some crime on this planet, and the way they punish people is they put this headset on you where it makes you live 40 years in your mind in one of their prisons, and they let it off, and then you're just like back to the day they put it on you, like back to that moment. It's trippy, man.
Wow.
Yeah, Chief is
Dude, he's done some hard
he
time.
suffers a lot in DS9. He's married to Keiko. That's probably the biggest one.
I am not one of these animals.
Oh, that's original. When exactly did they all become animals?
When they stopped giving a damn about the law, about civilization.
The degree of civilization in a society can be judged by observing its prisoners. Dostoevsky said that after doing a little time.
Fuck you. Cyrus Grissom said that after putting a bullet in my agent's head, okay?
Oh, man. I don't know. A ship with no Riker or Worf is a ship I have difficulty getting on board.
I mean, you're right. Riker might kick his ass. Riker's pretty he's pretty good.
The beard adds like 10 strength points.
Yeah.
Well, on Earth Universe 241, he's a DEA agent.
Yes.
Oh, whoa. Are we overlapping with Rick and Morty now? How many dark things can we get in? We haven't talked about Anakin.
That's in the Abrams timeline.
Look, can we get an Anakin and Sand joke in? We haven't done any Star Wars yet this episode. We're going to break our track record.
Yeah. The Trek record.
We're just going to piss off so many people. Oh, God. There's a guy that hasn't left his room in a week and a half. It's going to get really angry.
Nah, no one cares. This is the new age of the internet. No one cares about shit like that.
Right. It's not just IRC chat rooms for Star Wars nerds anymore.
No. The days of dial-up modems and message boards are long gone.
Oh, God. How do I get to my news groups?
Now everyone can watch the
Instagram.
holiday special.
Right. Oh, my God. Reddit is the modern news group. Holy shit.
Delete Reddit. get rid of it before it becomes self-aware.
Skynet. Oh my God. The first
On
step
August
is Skynet.
29th, 2019, Reddit becomes self-aware.
Snoo is your new master. Oh my God.
It knows everything about you. Okay, we didn't even get into the point. There's a really great scene where they introduced the most brutal of all the characters, Steve Buscemi.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay. We'll get to
Wasn't
the
it-
brutality of Steve Buscemi.
Isn't this where they bring him on?
No, not yet. I want to save that moment, actually, so
Okay.
hold that thought.
Okay.
But you're right. He is brutal. So on the plane, we get a couple other characters that don't have big-time intros. We get Dave Chappelle, who describes himself as just like a drug dealer, drug user, I don't know, burglar. He says he's a nice guy. He just got caught.
How is he there too now? That's even less of a crime than Nicolas Cage, where he's like a low-time drug dealer.
Yeah, you're right. That's a good point.
Better send this black guy to a Supermax prison.
Oh, you're right. That's it. It's because he's black.
Right?
Unfair, man. The racism in 97.
Ugh.
I'm glad we live in 2019 where that doesn't exist anymore.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. So Dave Chappelle's going to the Supermax prison for being Dave Chappelle. Danny Trejo is also there. Do you guys remember his character name and his gimmick?
I remember his gimmick.
I don't remember his name, but I remember his gimmick.
His name is Johnny 23
That's right. That's what it is.
or 27. Or, oh man,
Wow.
now it escapes me. Johnny something. There's a number.
There's a number there, yeah.
Yeah. Do you guys know why?
It was Johnny 23 because that's how many like women he's raped or something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
He's
he
all
has like
super proud
a
of
tattoo
it.
for each one.
Yeah, this guy.
Yeah.
And he's like boasting about it, and John Malkovich is like, "Oh, you're Johnny 23. You're a piece of shit." He's like, "But I guess you can help us out."
Call me Johnny 600 if they knew the truth.
Yeah, it doesn't have quite the same ring to it. Anyway, I despise rapists. For me, you're somewhere between a cockroach and that white stuff that accumulates at the corner of your mouth when you're really thirsty. But in your case, I'll make an exception.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's supposed to be just like a totally piece of shit character. Like,
Even the other cons don't like him.
Now, I guess even among convicts, rapists are not very popular, is what I've heard.
Yeah.
it's like what, like rapists and like
Child
child molesters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Child molesters get their asses murdered in prison.
But Danny Trejo, I guess, hasn't gotten murdered yet because he's
Right.
he's buff and he's Danny Trejo.
Danny Trejo plays slight variations on the same character in like 35 films.
Yeah.
And owns a coffee and donut shop and cantina
Yeah, right.
right by Steve's place.
Yeah.
He does?
He owns a coffee and donut shop in, I think it's in the Burbank area, and he's got some cantinas and some taco stands, and one of them, one of the cantinas is in Warner Center in Woodland Hills.
Wow.
Yeah, right by work. Yeah.
Yeah, very near, actually off one side of where the Promenade Mall is.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we've always talked about going there. But
So anyway, Danny Trejo is like a rapist. Are there any other guys that I'm missing? I think that's it for now, right?
I think they introduced some like small. There's some other like minor characters, or I can't even remember now. I know there's like a
Gets
bunch
set
of
on
guys.
fire.
Yeah, so you're right. So let's get into that. So they're all getting on the plane to get shipped out, and the inmates, some of them anyway, have a plan, right? So they're going to break out. Now this plan involves Cyrus the Virus, Ving Rhames, and Dave Chappelle. Now Cyrus and Ving Rhames, they both have like, I guess like some like paper clips or some kind of like metal inserted into their skin that they pull out to pick their handcuffs.
Yeah, that was a little creepy. That was a little weird.
It was a little gross to look at, yeah. They had like these metal like things that they pull out of their skin. And they pick their handcuffs. Now Dave Chappelle has something that he swallowed that he coughs up, and it's a match and like some lighter fluid. So his plan is to create a distraction by lighting the guy that's sitting next to him on fire.
And he tells him, "Oh, if you make it, like, I'm sorry," or something. I thought that was a pretty funny
Says, if
like
you come out
quip.
of this okay, no hard feelings.
He actually improv most of his lines for the entire film.
I believe it. It
Yeah.
seems very Dave Chappelle.
Right.
Yeah, I like that. I like that little line.
I think he's actually pretty funny in it. to be
Oh, yeah,
honest.
absolutely.
Yeah, he's a highlight for sure. I wish he was in it more.
He gets a very untimely and unfortunate death, which we'll get into.
Yeah. Not only does he die, but his body is not treated kindly. Anyway, so
But for now, he's still alive and creating a distraction.
Dave Chappelle's just like cracking like Native American jokes left and right on the Native American dude sitting next to him, calling him Chief and Cochise.
It's like mass murder. Who knows what that guy's done?
Yeah. He's like, oh man, he started chanting and then suddenly he burst into flames. Like, man, he's just going like every Native American joke you can throw at this guy.
No mercy.
So he sets this guy next to him on fire, and the guards like freak out because there's a fire on this plane that they're on. Imagine if there's a fire on an airplane you're in. Wouldn't that fucking?
Oh yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. Like how? Why? Like that's.
So everyone
intense.
immediately panics and they start putting out the fire while Cyrus the Virus and Ving Rhames, Diamond Dog, they get out and they take over the plane pretty easily because there's no guns on this plane except for one that's in the cockpit and a lockbox.
Ooh, that's a good point because we totally skipped over. We forgot to mention the whole subplot where Cole Meany sends his guy undercover on the plane, but John Cusack is adamant that he can't have a gun. And they make a point of that. They're like, no, there's no guns. The only one is in the pilot's cabin in a lockbox. And he makes a point also that there's a small stash below the plane.
You're right. Absolutely.
But Cole Meany doesn't like that. And he's like, well, no. And then they're like, no, that's how it's going down because he overrides him. And when his agent or his undercover guy gets on the plane, you see Cole Meany slip him a pistol like in his pants.
Yes, he does.
And I actually thought that was I liked that scene, and I liked where this movie was going at that point because it's a pretty dramatic scene. You're like, oh shit, like he has a gun now, even though he's not supposed to.
Yeah,
which later comes into play.
It's another like weird, like clunky piece of exposition where they say, okay, so there's this drug cartel in Colombia. They're going to pick up one of the members at the layover, and they're bringing on this DEA agent to kind of interrogate him while on the plane, disguised as an inmate. So they go over that real quick. I think that's right. I could be wrong for all I know.
No, you're right, though. It's very quick, and it's just something to just set up just to set it up.
Yeah.
They're trying to bust a like a mafia operation.
Yeah, it's like a drug cartel, I think.
Yeah.
But they do have like a mafia-ish sounding name.
Right.
It's like the Gambini family or something, but they're drug cartel. Something like that.
But that's Cole Meany's character. He's the DEA agent, and that's his guy on the plane undercover. And then that's when he slips him the pistol, even though they told him not to.
Right.
So he has a gun and no one else knows.
Cut to a little bit later, we have the cons taking over the plane. They get the one gun that's on the plane, but then this guy reveals himself by holding Dave Chappelle hostage. He pulls out his gun.
Yeah, I actually like this scene too. I really liked where this movie was going because this scene, he doesn't reveal himself immediately. Dave Chappelle starts searching him, and then that's when you realize he's going to find the gun, and then he takes him hostage.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he obviously doesn't survive that situation. Steve, do you want to tell us about the DEA agent here?
Yeah, well, Cole Meany and him are like close buddies. There's actually, okay, here's a side note. The TV cut of this movie was edited differently. And there's an additional scene where Cole Meany's character talks about how he's known this dude since they joined like the DEA together. They're super close friends and lived through a bunch of violent shit. And like, this movie's so full of pointless exposition and is so shallow. There's this one piece that actually gives some context to the story and some depth to the story, and they decide not to run it in the theatrical version of the film, probably because they're like, oh shit, that's too many layers, don't run it. But yeah, so he's on board the plane and shit escalates. He ends up pulling out a gun, and it does not go well from there.
Right. I mean, he gets shot basically. Is the short version of the story. Poe, who's Nick Cage, tries to intervene. Tries to talk him down so he doesn't get shot. Maybe he'll just get taken prisoner. But of course he gets shot, and John Malkovich, he thinks that Poe is kind of distracting him so that he could take him. And so he's kind of, I don't know, he gets on the good side of Cyrus the Virus at that point, John Malkovich.
All right.
Yeah. So the DEA agent's dead, and now the cons have taken over. So they have control, and they go to the pilots too.
Yep.
So they have full control of the plane now.
Yep.
Ladies and gentlemen,
This is your captain speaking. I have the only gun on board. Welcome to Con Air.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Con Air.
Yes, I forgot he says that too. He says it on the overcome. Isn't that exactly what he says?
I think that is exactly what he says.
There it is. He said the title of the movie.
So here's, I think, what the plan is. They do intend to land in Carson City to do a prisoner exchange. That's fine. But they're going to pick up a prisoner that's with that cartel, and then they're going to take the plane somewhere else and switch planes, leave the country, and go work for that cartel, I think. Anyone have any corrections for me? If I got that wrong, who gives a shit?
Sounds about right, yeah.
Whatever. We'll roll with that.
Okay.
These lines are said so fast. You know, as a quick side note, supposedly there's a podcast that all they do is Con Air. That's all. Their podcast is all about Con Air. Every episode.
How do you do that?
I don't know.
That's talent.
Yeah, I can't do that.
I can't.
I've heard that John Cusack dislikes this film so much he refuses to talk about it in interviews.
I've heard
and
that.
Those dudes are the exact opposite. All they want to talk about is Con Air.
That's so funny to think
Right.
about. Because you know what? John Cusack is great in this movie.
Yeah.
I was rewatching it again just to refamiliarize myself. And like his facial expressions, his line delivery, he's really good. He's spot on. Like he did everything like on point, I feel like. As good as that character could have been.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess the mistake was taking the part.
Did this movie tank? Does anyone know?
It made I don't remember exactly what the box office returns were, but it made a lot of money. I mean, you know, not like record-breaking.
I mean, I feel like it would have. A 1997 action movie with all these particular actors.
It was a big release.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, this was one of those last big action R-rated movies that you could get. They stopped making them R-rated, it seemed like, after this.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, in the mid to late 90s was like the last of making of there's a certain type of action film, and to that effect, a certain type of drama film that kind of came out of the mid to late 60s and evolved over time, and by the late 90s they were just about done making them. And you did stylistically, all of a sudden, 2002, 2003, almost out of nowhere, without people really noticing, bam, there's this shift in the way those movies are made, for sure.
Well,
absolutely.
Wikipedia says the film was a box office hit and it grossed $224 million worldwide.
That's huge.
101 million, which was with North America.
Yeah, that's big for
Yeah,
sure.
so yeah, it made a lot of money, which is kind of surprising.
God, but I mean, by today's standards, a movie marketed at that level, that would not be a success. A movie marketed at that level, that it would have cost $200 million to make. You know, like.
Well, my next notes are a little weird and hard to read, so I'm just trying to do this part from memory. So I apologize. So they land in Carson City as scheduled to unload some prisoners, but they don't want to let out any of the cons, or at least not all of them. Some of them volunteer. So they let off the guards disguised as the cons.
They put the masks over their faces.
Yeah, they basically put a bag over their head and they gag them.
Yeah, so the guy, and they put their tags on them too.
Yep.
So the guards think that they're the actual prisoners.
Yes.
Quick note though that when they land, they're also in the middle of some kind of crazy dust storm.
Yeah.
Just for effect. I don't know why. The whole scene, they're in this like the middle of the desert, just this epic like dust storm going on.
Things worked out for them. It really obscures them.
Yeah.
There's also another small side plot of Baby O, Bubba, who has diabetes and is dying, right? So he's supposed to get his diabetes shot, his insulin shot, I should say. And during the commotion, most of it was destroyed, and there's no needles. So he has his insulin, but he doesn't have any way to take it.
Yeah, which that's not even how diabetes works. Like I guess you do in a sense start dying, but yeah, for the movie he's like sweating and he's like dying. It's not how it works really.
I have no idea how it works, but I assume you're right.
But anyways, yeah, so Nicolas Cage like vows to help him and like won't leave him.
Yeah, so that's why Nicolas Cage doesn't get off the plane here, is because he can't leave his friend to die. Plus, he's pretty sure Danny Trejo's going to rape one of the female guards.
He's a ranger, you know, they make a point. Like,
Yeah.
he doesn't leave his men behind.
Yeah, what would Zordon say?
potion made from the sap of the singing squash, a rare root found in certain dimensional gaps. Eons ago, I discovered the singing squash in a dimensional gap on Dromac 5. Rita sent the putties to stop me. The battle was fierce, but I was able to repel them with the help of the squash.
Leave him behind to go see your daughter.
I can't do this. I'm a teenager with attitude. So Nicolas Cage stays on the plane. Some of the guys get off that are basically unknowns and the guards, and they bring on some new passengers. Now I'll talk about one of them, who's Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing is the guy that's going to replace the pilot. So they don't need their pilot. They're going to have their own convict pilot who is going to take over from here, and he's called Swamp Thing. Who do you want to talk about, Alan? Go ahead.
Oh, here we go. They refer to him as the Marietta Mangler, and it's Steve Buscemi. But when they introduce him, they make him specifically, they make it a point like this is the worst of the worst guys.
Yeah, this guy's like Cannibal Lecter times 1,000. Like he...
They bring him on board completely like strapped to like a metal chair, his face mask, like he can move and he can't move at all basically.
Yeah, this device they have him in, it's like a crazy like technical straitjacket where like
it looks like he's an X-Men and they're trying to like control his powers.
Yeah. It's like an X3.
It's the best possible way to put it. Just keep him like sucking all the metal out of the walls or something crazy.
Like they have these like metal rods like sticking around his neck.
You're
and
right, he's like a superhero prisoner. Like
yeah, like they can't let him get any leverage at all. Like the smallest thing.
Going to that glass cell they used to keep Magneto in.
Like if he gets free at any point, like he could just kill everyone. He has to be totally strapped down.
And his character name is Garland Green.
Christ, in a cartoon.
Shit, that's Garland Green, man.
Marietta Mangler.
That skinny little man butchered 30-something people up and down the eastern seaboard. They say the way he killed those people makes the Manson family look like the Partridge family.
Well, he's on the right flight.
The Marietta Mangler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's Steve Buscemi, Garland Green. So they get him on. He's like the big name guy that they get on. And they proceed to take off, but Nicolas Cage had a plan in effect. He obviously is getting out of prison, and he doesn't want all this shit to go down. He doesn't want the cons to take over and all this stuff. So he's trying to figure out a way to let the cops know what's going on without letting the cons know that he's trying to do this, because they'll kill him, obviously. So he puts like the DEA's like tape recorder that he found on him inside the jacket of one of the guys they let off the plane as like a signal to them. Mm-hmm. And they see the signal and they do try to stop him. Like the cops try to stop the plane from taking off again, but they are not successful.
Yeah, so while that's all happening too, that's a good point. Dave Chappelle or Pinball, they take out the transponder from the jailbird, and Dave Chappelle implants it into another like tourist plane.
Yeah, you're right. He does do that. And he starts talking to some girl.
Yeah, because she catches him snooping and she's like, "What are you doing? Like, you're the only one here. What are you doing here?"
Yeah.
And he's like trying to woo her. He says like, "Oh, you have pretty eyes," or he's like trying to just be goofy and get out of it.
He misses the plane because of that shit.
Yeah, because they start taking off, and Dave Chappelle.
The last thing you see of him is him chasing after the plane as the landing gear is going back up into the plane.
Yeah.
So that's the last you see of him alive, anyway.
Forgot about that. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, because he's running after the plane, but he does put the transponder device on that like tourist plane.
Yeah.
So they can't track them.
So they get out of there, and this is kind of where John Cusack is putting together that someone might have tried to tip him off with the tape recorder thing. Mm-hmm. So he realizes that they have an ally on that plane. There's like a whole scene where he puts the pieces together, but the short version is he realizes that someone on the plane is trying to help him, and eventually deduces that it's probably Nicolas Cage, Cameron Poe.
I think this is around the same time they decide to go to the jail cell of Cyrus's cell.
Yeah, that's right.
And they start looking for clues. And I don't even know how they get there or what they're looking for, but they're like in his cell
cleaning the
looking for
cell,
something.
because he's no longer in it. So they're just getting it ready for the next person to go in.
okay.
And they find like that the wall is kind of like broken in, and
Yeah.
they open it up and they find all kinds of like plain blueprints and stuff.
Yeah, like he's been planning this for a while. So like it's a slow like realization that he's been planning this and this isn't just like an ordinary thing.
Yeah, exactly. You have anything to add to that, Steve?
It's kind of a rip on Shawshank Redemption, you know, like hiding in the walls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's like a few things that I feel like are kind of taken from other movies, you know.
Yeah. Well, this is an action film cliche. It's just a cliche of a cliche. It's just a bunch of tropes from other action films thrown into a movie to the point where I mentioned this while we were watching it. I did not realize Mark Mancina is a composer. He was originally hired to do the music on this film. He is the same guy that did the music for the original Bad Boys, which was also a Jerry Bruckheimer movie. And he ended up having to leave partway through production because of overlaps with his other obligation at the time, Speed 2 Cruise Control.
The boat one?
The boat one. And somebody who was working with him ended up finishing the score to the movie. But I commented while we were watching it, there are portions of the soundtrack to this film that sound just like the soundtrack from Bad Boys. That's Mark Mancina. His thumbprint was all over that. That dude must have scored 8 or 10 movies that all sounded exactly the same. It's unbelievable.
I don't remember hearing any Will Smith Bad Boys for Life.
Right? No, we missed out on that. We could have had another, Wiki Wiki Wild Wild West, but no,
Yeah.
no Biggie Bad Boys.
Imagine if he was the Dave Chappelle character, he would have had like a "We're Flying on Con Air" song.
Yes. Well, if they ever remake Con Air, you know who Alan wants to play that character.
Oh, you know it.
His main man, Jaden Smith.
Favorite actor, Jaden Smith,
Yeah.
greatest actor of all time.
I really hope to find out his bit is an act, but that's a discussion for another time.
Save that for our Jaden Smith podcast episode.
Yeah.
Dear God, why?
Alan's doing his own spin-off podcast of just about Jaden Smith.
Jaden Smith analysis.
That should be like the danger pick in the hat. Like you should put Jaden Smith.
Any Jaden Smith movie.
Which of the three of them? Like,
Yeah, you're gonna really show us and pick The Pursuit of Happiness.
I was gonna pick the Karate Kid.
right.
I'd be down.
As long as it's not After Earth or whatever that one was.
I want to watch the next Karate Kid.
With Hilary Swank?
Yeah.
Oh, God. I thought that was the worst thing they were ever going to do to the Karate Kid until they made the one with Jaden Smith in it. Like,
Do you remember when Mr. Miyagi and his friends they're like monks and they all go bowling and they do like their meditation bowling, like they pray and the ball like goes right down the middle and it's a
Absolutely.
strike every time. The Karate Bitch.
and the Karate Bitch. That might only be the fourth or fifth other movie we've mentioned during this one.
That's pretty good.
So wait, where are we now?
All right, so I skipped a part of my notes, I think, because I put Dave Chappelle lands on a car.
No, you. Yeah. Oh yeah. There's a couple steps
They
you missed
find
there.
this popsicle bass
Yeah.
in the...
There's something wrong. Okay, so they take over the plane and they escape, or they leave the stop, and then the pilot Swamp Thing tells them that they're being slowed down.
Yes.
And they're not up to speed. So then he says, "Oh, it's the landing gear. Go check it out." So then, oh no, Cyrus tells
Ving Rhames.
Ving Rhames, "Go check it out. Like something's wrong." So then Ving Rhames is like, "Oh," he tells Nicolas Cage, "Hey, go check it
Oh
out."
my god. It's like a corporate environment.
Yeah.
Talk about passing the buck, man. And Nicolas Cage tells Bubba to go check it out.
Well, Nicolas Cage is the lowest man on the totem here, so he goes to check it out, and then that's when we find out the unfortunate ending to Dave Chappelle.
Yeah, he was trying to get on through the plane, and getting in, the landing gear crushed him. So his body is just like being crushed by the landing gear.
It's like stuck there, so
Yeah.
he's just dead, and his body's just laying there stuck.
So their solution to this problem is just to push the body out of the plane. I'm sure it will end up fine.
But he's also down there with the other guy. I forget his name already. That goatee guy.
No, that's later. Yeah.
No, he's down there with him.
Later.
But that's when he has the pen, right? And he writes on the shirt.
Yeah, but that's when he's with Ving Rhames.
Oh,
And
okay.
they're
Oh,
the-
you're right.
yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So he writes Larkin. He writes a note to John Cusack on
To
Dave
Vince,
Chappelle's shirt.
yeah.
His name's Vince Larkin.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, so Ving Rhames is down there with him.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that other guy's later, but when he's with Ving Rhames, real quick, he like writes on the shirt before you can see him, and then they push the body out.
Right, and the body lands on some poor fucker's car while he's driving. Completely destroys it. And Larkin ends up getting the note that someone on the plane was trying to contact him.
When the body lands and they show a scene where the officer calls him, he calls John Cusack and he makes a point. He's like, "Hey, I have some evidence here, and it's got your name all over it."
Yeah, I just about threw my phone at the screen when that happened. Like,
It's Larkin. This is Ted Grasso, Fresno Police Department. We got a problem here with a corpse.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it fell out of the sky. I don't think he's an astronaut.
And what's this got to do with me?
It's got your name written all over it.
I know it was so
it
corny.
was so hard not to stop the movie. Like, just, all right, fuck this movie. You had me for a while, movie, but you fucked it up.
Yeah, it's got your name all over it. Just like, no.
God damn it.
It's got your name written all over it.
So it's the second clue to John Cusack that Nicolas Cage is trying to help him.
Now, a little bit after this is where the goatee guy... we need to get better with names.
You say he looks like a poor man's...
Yeah. So poor man's Jeff Bridges is going through like their stuff in the cargo area, and he finds out that Poe was actually getting released.
Yeah, he finds his box, and he finds the parole letter.
And in one hand he has a letter, and in one hand he has the stuffed rabbit. And Nicolas Cage wants him to do something.
He wants him to put the rabbit back in the box.
Put the bunny back in the box.
Put the bunny back in the box.
I knew you was a punk, and I was right. You been playing us all along. You a free man.
I said, put the bunny back in the box.
He doesn't, obviously, so he tries to kill Nick Cage. Nick Cage kills him instead. I think just says, why couldn't you just put the bunny back in the box, man?
Why couldn't you put the bunny back in the box?
At this point, the movie had me again. I was like, all right, you fucked it up with that line from before, but now I'm back in.
Okay, so yeah, that guy's dead, and then what happens from there? I'm trying to think.
So
what
this is
happens
where
next.
they're going to land, and they're going to switch planes with a... they're going to unload everyone, and they're all going to get on the Mexican cartel plane, I guess.
But
or
wait.
not Mexican, Colombian.
He writes the name of the airport on the shirt. What airport were they going to?
It's just like some abandoned airstrip with a bunch of junked out cars and stuff.
They had a name for it, though.
I have no idea.
Hold on, I'll find it. I know what it is. But keep going. I'm gonna.
All
find
right,
this
so
name.
they're gonna go land at this abandoned airstrip. They're gonna switch planes. At least that's the plan. But when they go to get there, there's no other plane in sight. And during this process, Bubba is on his way. He's like on death's door. Like he's getting close to dying. They need to find him like a needle for this insulin ASAP. So they land the plane there.
They land at Lerner Airport.
Super.
Yeah.
These are the kind of facts that we needed Jamie for. Do you want to talk about when they land, Steve?
This little Lerner airport looks more like a junkyard than an airport.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of shit stacked all over the place. God knows what's going on there.
It's like a little town in Mad Max. Like it'd be a bunch of guys with like football gear and like.
Right. Yeah, it's like it's not quite like post-apocalyptic with the armor and the crazy cars, but at the same time it's like, oh yeah, these are basically Fallout people. Like
Yeah.
this is what life is going to be like 50 years after the bomb is dropped and people can live outside the tunnels again. You know, like and God, and then some of them have stuff to do while they're on the ground at the airport,
Yeah.
and that keeps them busy. But the thing I find fascinating is that Steve Buscemi's character, this mass murderer, just kind of wanders off and goes socializing in a trailer park adjacent to the airport. And no one seems to care or notice these. I mean, I guess they would. They're all convicts. They don't give a shit. Some murderers wandering around. But like, this right? But it is. And this dude has at one point shared the fact that he once drove across 2 states with a child's head on his head as a hat.
Oh yeah, he says that specifically.
Right.
So this guy is clearly insane. He's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
What if I told you insane was working 50 hours a week in some office for 50 years, at the end of which they tell you to piss off? Ending up in some retirement village, hoping to die before suffering the indignity of trying to make it to the toilet on time. Wouldn't you consider that to be insane?
And who does he find in the RV park but a little girl playing with a tea set and dolls in an empty, dried-up pool?
Yep.
And, I mean, the point of this scene is purely to make you wonder whether or not he's about to murder a child.
Right.
And I don't... it's not even a matter of like being offended or oh it's creepy. It's just like, what is the point of this scene?
I hate this scene.
Right?
I hate it.
Me
It's one of
too.
the things that I hate about this movie is this scene.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a pointless non sequitur just to make you wonder for 5 minutes if a vile character is going to murder a child.
I'm glad we're talking about this because I actually had a different reaction. I wasn't sure if this scene was real. Like I thought it was real. He wandered off, but was that girl real or was that just like him being crazy?
Oh yeah, he keeps the doll.
So what was that supposed to be, or was that supposed to be like not?
Here's
clear?
the thing. I see where you're coming from, but I saw no evidence to support your theory.
That's he's just crazy.
I didn't see anything to indicate that he like sees things or like that person might not be there.
Why would there be just a girl in a pool? Like it was just a weird
Well,
scene.
like, there's a trailer park.
Or a trailer park, yeah. But
she was just outside.
she's just sitting there. Like that's weird. That's why I thought maybe he's
You've
crazy.
never just sat there, Alan. You're sitting there now, bro.
Alan has never sat in his life.
like in an empty pool in the middle of the desert.
Is she in the pool?
Yeah, at one point
she
she
next
was
to it? Oh yeah,
playing
that's
in
right.
the pool. But I mean that's
weird.
I mean, yes, it is kind of, but at the same time, like empty, dried up pool. It's sitting there by the disused playground in a trailer park. Like kids are going to end up in it. I believe it.
Right.
Okay.
She
Yeah.
should never skateboard that day, Alan.
Right.
Alan's like, why isn't she skating the fucking pool? This isn't realistic. I'd be skating it up.
Right? Little 8-year-old playing with fucking dolls and a tea set. Where's her fucking skateboard?
Fuck you little dipshit.
Right? The part I find unrealistic about this film is just no skateboarding whatsoever. You never see anybody skateboard in Con Air.
I still think that could have been made up by Steve Buscemi. Like
Okay.
he's just insane.
All right, we'll say maybe. But going back to what Steve said, I'm definitely on board with that. When I first saw that scene as a kid, I liked it, but
Yeah. I can remember sitting next to my mother in the theater. My parents took my brother and I to see it, and my mom thinking it was kind of a creepy weird out. Like, oh my God, I think she was nervous the character was going to do something terrible. My brother and I would be in the theater. I think my brother must have been like 10
Yeah.
or 11. So yeah.
So okay, yeah. So he wanders off to meet this girl, and who knows what he's doing. But then
Yeah.
all the other cons are doing their stuff, and Nicolas Cage is going to find the needle to give to his friend.
yeah, he's looking for it, and he finds a bunch of like drug lord guys with a plane like hidden. I don't know fucking what their plan is. They're gonna like secretly just take off with one of the drug lord. I don't know.
Yeah, they want to retrieve that dude
and just
then,
get out
take
of it.
off with him. It's a stupid plan, but I think that is what they're planning.
Whatever. I don't.
Yeah.
Who the fuck cares?
Right.
Like seriously, that subplot. Like no one's gonna remember it.
No, it's like, why did this movie even need the subplot? It's like this. You forget about the Supermax prison thing by the time you're 25 minutes into it. Here's
Yeah.
this other story. It's like, oh yeah, we mentioned this, so here's how that ends. I'm like,
I thought it was a pretty cool scene when they find Nicolas Cage and the guy has the gun to him, and Nicolas Cage is like, "You can't shoot me because they're all gonna hear. You're gonna blow your cover." And then he immediately just starts putting on a silencer.
Yeah. He says, "Hooray for the sounds of fucking silence."
that one part I thought was badass. Like fuck.
But Nicolas Cage gets out of it because they're distracted by Vince Larkin, also known as John Cusack, who's the U.S. Marshal guy. And Nick Cage takes out all the guys with his Power Ranger skills. And then he gets a gun and he points it at Vince Larkin. They have like a little Mexican standoff. And Vince Larkin says, like, you're the guy that's been trying to help me, basically. And Nick Cage says, yeah, but I got to go now. So he gets out of there. Nothing really is much is said there. Nick Cage says, like, I don't trust you.
Sorry, boss, but there's only 2 men I trust. One of them's me, the other's not you.
Well, who was the other one? Why'd you mention the other one?
He never says who the other one is.
Right? It's like, oh, I'm just going to... Here's a mention.
I guess it's Bubba. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe it's Bubba. Maybe it's his wife or his daughter.
No, because he says, like, men, I think.
Oh, yeah, maybe he does.
maybe he just means, like, men in a general sense, and it is his wife. But he doesn't quite trust his kid yet because he's never met her.
Like, I think I love my kid, but I'm not sure yet.
Yeah, she might be shady.
She could be a narc. You never know.
So all hell kind of breaks loose here, right? Because Vince Larkin drove there in a Stingray. Is that right, Steve?
Oh, he drove
That
there.
is a Stingray. It's a 67 Stingray. It is a beautiful car.
He stole Colm Meaney's Stingray and drove there, and he's
Yeah.
calling guys to come in. So he's calling in the cavalry, right? So the cops are coming to stop the cons from taking off again. Now the cons realize they're not actually switching planes. They're going to keep the same plane and just get the fuck out of there. But the cops are getting there too fast before they can get the plane off the ground. So they have to, like, basically have an action scene at this point.
Oh, wait. You know what? I'm thinking about this now. Were they all under the auspices that they were going to get on the plane with the drug cartel dude?
Yeah, I think so.
I think that's what it was, right?
Yeah, but it was like a small jet, so it was just for like one guy.
Well, yeah, because they didn't realize that clearly the cartel dude's intention was either at best to ditch them and at worst to kill all of them and then leave. Because then he tries to.
Yep.
He tries to get away with it. So, yeah, that's what I think. They thought they were going to switch to their plane and then go into non-extradition land.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I don't really like to describe verbally action scenes very much. So maybe I'll leave this mostly to you. Basically, there's a big gunfight with the cops that show up. Does anyone want to give any more detail than that?
You don't really need to know more than that.
It starts off because the previously mentioned stash of guns under the plane. All the cons find the stash of guns like in the cargo area.
Sure.
Because they had the one in the lockbox in the pilot cabin, the one that was snuck on that wasn't supposed to be there, the DEA agent, and then we forget about the cash under the plane, which all the cons find.
Mm-hmm.
So now they're like loaded. They have like rifles and shotguns and
Yeah.
and then they start setting up a trap for all the police guys. Like they throw propane tanks and they try to set up this like funnel. Like they want to funnel him in and like.
Yeah, they want to bottleneck them.
Yeah.
Which they do, and they, you know, whatever. They have a gunfight and eventually get out of there.
Yeah,
but
there's
Nick
a-
Cage tries to stop the whole thing. He like ties a rope. So is it a rope or a chain or something?
It's some kind of like heavy duty rope or it's a plane, so I don't know exactly what it is.
He tries to get some rope to like some post to hopefully stop the plane from taking off, but it does take off, and it unfortunately destroys the Stingray. Like it starts dragging it,
Ugh.
and they take off with the Stingray flying right behind it.
Yeah.
Steve, tell us.
The Stingray ends up tethered to the back of the plane and then proceeds to get dragged up into the air and through the control tower and just completely taken to shreds and then rains back down on the ground around everybody. Just in time for I think John Cusack and Meaney's character is there by then, I think, as well.
Yeah.
Isn't he?
Yeah, he is.
It falls like in front of them.
Right? Oh, great.
And then he's like, "Oh, is that your car?" And he's like, "No, I left
I left
mine
mine
at
at
the
the
office."
office.
But then they see the license plate.
Yeah, which is ass kicker, but it's AZZ.
Ass kicker.
And then John Cusack makes some like smart ass remark. What does he say? He's like, does he say we'll get it fixed, or he's like, I know a guy or something?
Yeah, he says that at some point. He's like, about the car, I know a guy.
It's like, oh, you know a guy who can put this back together from small parts? Like,
Yeah.
No, that car's never getting put back
It's
together.
just like debris and what
Right.
vaguely resembles a car frame.
This is the car equivalent of Humpty Dumpty. This shit's not getting put back together. Like,
You might be able to salvage one tire.
right?
Oh man.
So the plane takes off, and at this point, John Malkovich and Ving Rhames find out that Poe has been against them the whole time. They find the letter, and they attempt to flush him out by pointing a gun at a guard, and they're going to shoot the guard. And then someone reveals themselves to be the traitor, but it's not Poe.
It's his friend with Bubba.
Yeah, it's Bubba.
It's Bubba.
So Bubba gets shot for his troubles. I remember this differently. Obviously, I was wrong, but I remember Bubba dying. But that's probably because Forrest Gump.
I was going to say, it doesn't matter what movie he's in, he never lives long enough to open the shrimp restaurant.
Yeah.
Fuck.
So now he's dying from diabetes, and he's been shot.
Yeah.
Man, it turns out gunshot wounds don't cure diabetes. Who knew?
You need insulin, not bullets.
Bullets. What about a bullet loaded with insulin? Would that
Maybe.
be helpful? All right.
Maybe a couple of them.
Is that how diabetes works?
They have to hit your pancreas.
Oh, that's what, you're totally right. That's what they mean by getting an insulin shot.
Yeah, you're getting shot with insulin.
When he gets a revolver. It's just like hollow points filled with insulin.
You're getting 9 millimeters of insulin.
That is perfect.
My note says Bubba dies, but that's the wrong movie.
That's the wrong movie.
Bubba does die in Forrest Gump, but not in this.
Oh, boy.
So at this point, a bunch of choppers show up. So like John Malkovich finds out that Poe's the traitor, and he's about to, I don't know, do something. He puts his gun not to Poe, but to the stuffed rabbit. He says anyone moves, makes a move, and the bunny gets it. But then a bunch of choppers show up, and they have to like frantically land the plane in the middle of Vegas, I guess.
Yeah, it's on the Las Vegas Strip.
Yeah.
And two real quick ones. Number one, there was a really famous hotel for decades on the Strip called the Sands.
Yep.
It closed a year or so before the movie got filmed. The producers found out the hotel was going to get wrecked. So the hotel they crashed the plane into in the movie is actually the real Sands. And they sent a camera crew to film the actual demolition of the Sands so that they could include footage of it in the movie, which is kind of interesting.
Wow.
And then there's another scene here, I think just after they've crashed, where there are fighter jets coming in, or helicopters coming in after everybody. And that moment, a lot of the residents, the local residents near the Strip and in adjacent suburbs were not aware that was going to be filmed, because there was no reason to let anybody know. But people actually called the Las Vegas Police Department wanting to know what was going on. People thought there was like a war going on the Strip, which is pretty cool.
Wow.
Right?
Man, imagine being there like at that time.
Yeah. Right?
I was in Vegas when they were filming something. I think it was, what's the Elvis 90s one? 3,000 Miles to Graceland? I think.
The one with Kurt Russell? No, the other guy's the Elvis impersonators?
Yeah. I was on the Strip when they filmed a part of that.
No shit.
Briefly when I was, I think, 13.
Wow.
I think that was it anyway. So yeah.
That's cool.
That's on par, right?
Right, absolutely.
All I saw were like some models. There was like, it was like some part where some girls were walking. So.
Oh, right.
Anyway. So they do crash land on the Strip. While the plane's going down, we find out that Nicolas Cage was actually impervious to bullets the whole time.
Yeah.
One of the cons shoots him in the arm as Nick Cage is just like aggressively walking towards him, and it doesn't even phase him. Nicolas Cage just keeps aggressively walking towards him, and then just like takes him out with one punch.
It's like a scene straight out of Terminator.
Yeah.
He just you see him clearly get shot and just doesn't phase him.
Little known fact, that was actually taken from a videotaped audition of Nick Cage for the T-1000.
Yeah.
Thank you, Robert Patrick.
Yeah, so it's kind of like this classic 90s over-the-topness right here. It was like the guy's like so mad and so enraged, the hero, that you shoot him and he just doesn't care. Like, it's not a matter of caring. Like
yeah, you just got shot.
So dumb. I guess it's that Power Ranger shit, you know?
So Nick Cage gets shot, doesn't phase him. They crash land on the Strip, and this is the huge, I guess, almost like the climax, because...
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, it's a huge scene where they're just plowing through buildings, and they go like a far distance, too.
Yeah, they destroy some shit.
They destroy like a good chunk of the Strip, and everyone's running and screaming, and everything's on fire, and they're just crash landing.
And basically, most of the cons get arrested as soon as the plane lands, except for John Malkovich.
He escapes on a fire truck. I think no, Swamp Thing.
Yeah,
Swamp Thing and Swamp Thing and Cyrus escape on the fire
Nicolas
truck.
Cage and John Cusack both see him at the same time, and they both go run after him, and they hop on, police bikes that are sitting right next to each other, and they like turn to each other like, "Oh, you're doing this too, huh?" And they're like,
right, it's another Terminator reference. But yeah, absolutely. Oh, we have the same idea.
"Yeah."
Like just like this acknowledged thing, like, yeah, we're both gonna get these guys, so let's steal these cop bikes.
Like, you're the hero. I thought I was the hero.
Because afterward, when all the damage is being assessed, they're going to be like, oh, the convict stole a police bike to chase after people. Totally cool. Absolutely. No one minds. Right.
Yeah, you saw the U.S. Marshal go after him. Why did you pursue?
Like, in fact, technically, you haven't been released from police custody. Like, you're still technically a prisoner in transport, so you definitely cannot go anywhere on a stolen police motorcycle.
Oh, we'll get into that too. There's another funny part. There's a funny reason to mention that again.
So they chase down Malkovich. It's a kind of a forgettable, lame chase scene. Like, I never remember it until I watch it again. Like, I won't remember it in a month. The most memorable stuff is everything before they land in Vegas.
Yeah, it was very I think we mentioned it before, but the movie was too long because the whole Vegas scene seemed unnecessary.
Yeah.
It was just like to extend the movie.
Yeah, they got to chase down the bad guy because he's not going down like that. So they chase him down, and well, they eventually take him out, but he has like a really exaggerated, crazy death. Do you guys remember this like series of like mousetrap events that like lead him to, like, he hits a thing, he falls down a thing, it hits a guy that dives into a cup that like triggers a ball that rolls. It's fucking crazy.
I remember Nicolas Cage jumps on the fire truck ladder while they're driving.
Yeah.
And then somehow eventually climbs up and starts fighting Cyrus.
Yeah.
While they're driving. And Nicolas Cage handcuffs him to the ladder and then hits the button for the ladder to extend. And then he drives through like the bridge walk.
Yeah.
Or whatever you want to call it.
And then he like lands in like a totally different environment.
He lands in like a rock quarry.
Yeah, a rock quarry. Yeah.
I mean,
it's like construction.
He is chained to the ladder of a fire truck, which then slams into a bridge, going like 40 miles an hour. There is no human being on the face of planet Earth who could survive that. That would have fucked up Superman.
Like you see the whole bridge shatter. Like he goes right through the bridge.
I think the stunt coordinator or somebody eventually admitted after this, like, that absolutely would have just killed him. I don't know. Yeah.
That's enough.
Right?
And then he falls into the rock quarry.
He doesn't even have a cut on him.
He like falls down a thing, and then like a thing lands on him, and then he gets crushed by some other thing.
It's like a Looney Tunes death.
There's some
like a Rube Goldberg. It looks like Pee-wee's machine from the beginning of this big adventure.
Yeah, like Pee-wee wakes up and he triggers his breakfast machine, and it kills John Malkovich.
Yeah, instead of breaking eggs, it crushes Cyrus's head.
Yeah.
You know, like
the end machine makes no sense. It's just like this like big metal rod that just keeps like trying to like pound some like this hydraulic press.
Yeah.
Like in the middle of Vegas.
Yeah, it's like a video game thing. Yeah. It's like Attack
and then
of the
he
Clones.
somehow falls perfectly into it.
I know. He lands in the fucking droid factory in Attack of the Clones.
Just doing on fucking Mustafar.
Yeah.
God damn it! Every time.
It's Geonosis.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Oh my god.
Yeah, Star Wars references. So, all right, let's get to the end, right? So Malkovich is dead, and Nicolas Cage tells John Cusack, he says, "I now trust 3 men in my life." And like shakes his hand.
And they're
We
like
still don't know who one of the three is.
Yeah.
And they're standing like outside the casino, and like all that the plane still crashed into. They're still like convicts, and they have
like,
time to like
anarchy.
Yeah, they still have time to like make up or like have this like serious
Give
scene.
it, like one-liners, like the
Yeah.
the female guard that was on the plane gets out and she says, "Hey, Poe."
Next time, take the bus.
Why wasn't I on the bus to begin with? And then basically the sentiment is here is like, well, that was fun. See you later, Poe. Like, wait, there's got to be some kind of release form or something. There's got to be something more than just, yeah, go ahead.
See you in Con Ocean.
Right. They make a point at the beginning of the movie of telling him that as long as he's in transport, he's still a convict. He hasn't been released yet. So, like...
He's still in transport.
They've crashed a plane. He's still in a police motorcycle.
He transitioned from being a convict to a superhero at some point, like 50 minutes in.
Right.
And then this is the scene where he finally meets his daughter with his wife.
Right. So the bunny conveniently just shows up in the gutter, and he just grabs it. Like all this debris from the plane is like everywhere, all over the Vegas Strip.
Even making room for the sentiment, I get what the sentiment is, but would you remove that from the gutter and give it to your daughter? No. Would you really? Right? No parent. You know what? You can find another stuffed rabbit somewhere and give it to her tomorrow.
You're in Vegas. Just go buy some.
Right? Yeah. You're in a huge hub, tourist hub. There's somewhere in the city that sells stuffed animals. Like, here's this wet gutter bunny that she's going to hold up to her face in 30 seconds.
When Nick Cage wipes it on his dirty wife beater that he's wearing, he's like, it's a little dirty.
Right?
When I first met my dad, it was in Vegas in Total Anarchy,
right?
And he was shot and gave me a dirty rabbit.
Yeah. It's Las Vegas.
I was sick for 4 weeks.
There's a 50% chance 1,000 yards up the strip, some drunk dude's pissing into that gutter.
Yeah.
Like,
oh, it's guaranteed.
Right? There's booze in there, like cigarette butts, whatever.
And
Here you go.
all of this is the first time he meets his daughter.
Yeah.
He's still shot. We can't forget that.
I know I've been in jail your whole life, but here's a wet gutter bunny.
I'm going to need to go to the hospital at some point.
Right. I have seen some trauma today.
He gets the big happy ending. He sees his wife again. He sees his daughter. She gives him a hug. He gives her the bunny.
And then he's just presumed to be free. Like, he could just leave.
The sequel is him suing the justice system over the trip.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, isn't that pretty much the ending? Like, it's how it ends. Like,
there's
free.
one other thing. So remember we saw Steve Buscemi, who went to the trailer park and hung out with the little girl. We know for a fact he didn't kill her because he gets back on the plane, and as the plane's taking off, we see her waving to the plane, totally happy and totally fine. So he didn't do anything to her. We know that based on that cue. Right. Anyway, he got back on the plane after all this landed. He must have gotten away because the next thing you see is him like playing craps like a high roller.
Which makes no sense, because what are we supposed to think about that? He's supposed to be the craziest killer who wore someone's head.
Maybe they were intending to have like a spin-off movie with him, like trying to live a normal life, but like...
Why does he get to live the normal life? He was the worst character.
He's a child murderer, and in the last moment of the film before the credits roll, it's like, oh, good, he's having fun.
Oh, he got away.
This is the dude you most needed to keep with the group, and in the prison, like, no.
That's the guy you had the fucking specially built restraints
I mean,
for.
even the other inmates were
You're
terrified.
Right. That's right. We were talking about that. I've totally forgotten. This is the dude who gets brought into the movie X-Men style, with a face mask and a crazy jacket. At the end of the movie, he's like, he's playing craps on the strip. Like, no, this is a really dangerous individual. He shouldn't be playing craps.
Like they're trying to contain the Juggernaut.
It's like the bad Juggernaut. It's like Vinnie Jones Juggernaut. It's like I'm Juggernaut, bitch, Juggernaut.
Steve Buscemi.
I'm the Juggernaut, bitch. Well, sometimes.
It's like oh god, version 1.0 of Deadpool in the Wolverine movie. But anyway,
and so at the very end, the last thing is him getting away.
Yeah, that's the note we
gambling.
End on. Does anyone have anything to say about the end of the movie before we give our thoughts?
Oh, that was pretty much my rant about it.
Yeah, that's it. I don't know what that scene was supposed to be for.
Yeah, why do I ask? You just said it all. All right, so I want to ask you guys what your rating is for this movie. We'll go through it one at a time. On any rating scale you want, what's your rating, Alan?
I give it 6 out of 10 cons. I thought it was entertaining, and obviously it's a pretty big, dumb movie. There was a lot of dumb scenes. It was a little too long. The whole Vegas thing seemed overdrawn. Like, they just needed to make more time and not let him go out like that. Like, they had to make it more, a bigger deal about it. But the beginning, I actually was really into it in the beginning, and especially when he slipped him the pistol, because I thought that was like a pretty good twist, because they told him you can't have that, and then at the very last second, he puts the pistol with his agent. And like, I thought that was like, okay, like this is building into like some real drama, like, oh shit. And then it kind of goes downhill fast.
Nosedives, if you will.
But I wish they would have stayed a little more serious with it, but it is what it is. And I was in it for like the first 25 minutes, and then it nosedived.
Last question for you, Alan. Favorite character?
Steve Buscemi.
Steve Buscemi, the character. Okay.
Gotta love that guy.
Steve, the character of Steve Buscemi. All right, Steve.
Oh, in France, this movie was called The Wings of Hell. And
do you know what they call a Con Air in France? Royale Air.
With cheese. That's really what it should have been called everywhere, because it's kind of stupid and painful to watch. It's just another example of a movie I as a kid couldn't appreciate for how terrible it really was. On a scale of 1 to 10 convicts, I'm gonna give this. No, you know what? On a scale of 1 to 10 years, I'm gonna go reverse on this one. I'm gonna give it 10 years in solitary confinement, which is no good at all.
Perfect 10 out of 10.
Perfect 10 out of 10. It was lonely, unfun, and mostly just stupid. And you spend the whole time watching them rehash the same thing
as you slowly go mad.
Right? And, yeah. Favorite character. Favorite characters are good. It's thin pickings. None of them are very good characters. I guess Poe. He's ridiculous. He's a caricature. Typical Nicolas Cage caricature, so that makes him entertaining. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to give this one a 4 out of 5. 4 out of 5 cons. I really like this movie a lot. Unfortunately, I thought everyone shared the same sentiment as me about this movie. I thought everyone loved it as much as I do. I'm just now finding out that that's not the case through you guys and my wife, who saw it for the first time and absolutely hated it. And she said she's been craving a 90s action movie, and I was like, oh, Con Air is perfect. Right. But she thinks it's really dumb. I was like, it's as good as True Lies. She doesn't agree.
No, you're wrong. I'm sorry. It's not even close.
Well, I really like Con Air. Fuck the haters. Simon West can sure direct a Rick Astley music video as well as a Nicolas Cage movie, I think.
Oh.
I think it's good fun. I mean, it's dumb, yeah, but it's really interesting for a lot of it. You're right, Alan. It does start to get... Like, the third act is like a snooze fest. Yeah. I mean, it's not that there's nothing going on. It's just that I don't know exactly why, but the audience stops caring, Yeah. In the third act, it's like, okay, all right, you should have done something different than what you did, Yeah.
I thought it was building really well in the beginning. Like, yeah, it's a ridiculous
You're right. It's
story.
better at building than it is at delivering. Like, it builds this stuff up, and then when it's time to deliver, it's like, I don't got a whole lot.
Same thing with my favorite character, Steve Buscemi. They built him up to be this crazy character.
He's like a metaphor for the whole movie.
Nothing
they
happens with him.
did nothing with him. My favorite character in this movie is a character whose name I don't remember. I've just been calling him Cole Meany. Oh. I love that he's just like super pissed off all the time, and he's like a shit talker, and he's just like a pain in the ass. Like, he's always talking shit to John Cusack, saying like, who's this fucking liberal piece of shit? He's like, what are you, a fucking psychology major? What the fuck's wrong with you?
Like, John Cusack, he's like outsmarting him, and he's
John
like...
Cusack's just like intelligent and well-spoken.
And the guy's like, fuck you.
He's like, what the fuck is this guy? Where'd he come from? Walking dictionary over here.
What kind of a Keystone Cops operation are you guys running here, huh? And you little shit, you got my agent killed.
Hey! He brought a gun on the plane.
If I knew the way you guys run things, I would have done and bring a fucking Uzi on board.
No one carries on these flights. No one. He brought a gun on board and he got himself killed. And in doing so, he compromised the safety of my men.
Your men are incompetent. They let themselves get taken over by a bunch of thugs and chains and cages.
I'm not gonna stand around and listen to this shit.
Guys.
I fucking love it. Plus the fact that he's one of my favorite DS9 characters adds a lot. It's like funny to see, it's like if the chief has had enough of the world's shit, like he becomes this guy.
Okay, dumb question. What years was DS9 on? Did that overlap Con Air?
It was in the 90s, but I'm pretty sure it ended before 97.
Ooh, probably like close though.
Yeah, it probably was close.
Yeah, so he did this after DS9.
Yeah, I'm guessing so. I don't know for sure on that though. I should have researched that.
I feel like it's really close, or I feel like it might even overlap. Because this was 97?
It might slightly.
Okay.
But, yeah, I think that about covers it. There's one last thing to do on the list here, and that's for Alan to draw the next movie out of the hat.
Okay, here we go.
We got some surprises in here, so...
Okay, I'm not looking. I'm just picking a random one. What are you guys thinking? I got one.
All right. Reveal the mystery. Next week's episode is going to be what, Alan?
Okay. Here we go.
I hope so.
What is next week's episode? Oh.
Oh no! What?
No. This works out. This couldn't have worked out better. I'll give you a hint, Corey. What did you call Poe, or what was the joke about Poe being a ranger?
Power Ranger?
Yeah, it's Power Rangers.
No.
Yeah.
Wait, which one? The newer one or the older one?
Well, it
Read
says
the full name.
Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the movie.
The movie, okay.
So,
God damn it.
That could not have worked out any better because we were joking about
My God,
that.
I'm so excited to watch this again.
There are going to be so many children's movies in this podcast.
Listen up, kids. The stuff you like is fucking horrible.
Garbage.
No, you know what? I think you guys will be surprised. This movie's not all bad. Alan, have you seen it?
I remember seeing it, but don't remember it really.
Steve, tell me.
Oh, absolutely. Somehow my mother convinced her mother, my grandmother, to take my brother and I to see this in a movie theater in Century City, and she fucking hated it.
Oh,
hated it.
We're going to talk more about that. All right. Hold that thought. Until next time, guys, thank you for listening to Big Dumb Movie. If you want to email in, our email address is bigdumbmovie@gmail.com.
See ya.
Later.
Goodbye.
I said, put the bunny back in the box.